think it's so important to get everything organised before day one of the session, for yourself, for your casual staff, for your sessional staff, and for your students. If you're changing things in week 3, oh yeah, we couldn't get that book, I'm not going to do it anymore, or yeah, I was wrong about that, we can't do that. I think it's difficult for everyone. It creates a bad mood. And so something I think is really important is that everything is rock solid, that you stick to a plan, and if you want to review it, do that next session. So come up with a really solid plan, let students know where they are. They kind of need boundaries, they need clarity, I think, to feel safe.
It's just about being really prepared that you can kind of tackle any of the questions that might come up, and that the students get the most out of what you're talking about for that week. So I cannot underestimate the importance of being prepared.
It reassures them, and it makes me legitimate, I guess, in their eyes. They see me as a legitimate academic. It shows that I'm invested in them and that I have taken the time to prepare and to develop a learning opportunity for them.
Firstly, I think that when preparing your subject material, you need to have clear ideas of what are the skills, what are the abilities that you're trying to develop in your students. Then think about how are you going to assess those abilities, and then think about how can you then present the material so that you can scaffold the learning of those skills and those abilities and the knowledge that you're trying to build in your students.
Before every lecture, before every tutorial, in my planning, I go to the rubric, I find which of the criteria I'm addressing, and I put that in my slides. I put it on a first slide, and I do that every week.
And at the start of every session I'll say, okay, learning outcomes, what are we doing? This is why we're doing this activity, because it meets A, B, C. And they'll go, right.
Students like it that I can say, in the tutorial that we're doing today, we're specifically addressing this criterion, and I'm ticking it off as a teacher, and I want you to leave here saying, yes, I know how to do you know, that part of the assignment.
I always start off with a list of what I must discuss in one particular session. And then I put on my hat which is my fun hat. How can I make this enjoyable? I don't want them to come to university and think that it's a really horrible thing that they just have to get through so they can go off and become a nurse or a dentist or physiotherapist or a social worker. How can I get them to enjoy what it is that they have to learn?
It doesn't have to be all pretty. It's actually, you have to have the thought behind what you're trying to achieve and how you present the material and how you can scaffold the students' learning, and also how you can develop that deep level of learning rather than just rote learning.
Really throw it around and think about it and plan it out. So I don't waste the students' time. I do something engaging, I do something thoughtful. I think about the pedagogy behind it so that it'll work successfully.
I think preparation is really the key. I want to make sure that I'm so confident going into that class.
Get hold of the lecture notes if they're available, and go over them. Make sure you understand them, that you know them, and rehearse it a couple of times, so that at least the first lecture, so that you don't choke up in the middle of it with anxiety.
The thing I do to combat the nerves really is to be extremely prepared. So I make sure that not only do I know the content that I'm teaching, but I also try to know the content that sort of runs alongside the content I'm teaching, if that makes sense. So, for example, I try to think about some of the questions, some of the awkward questions that I might get asked in class.
Do that and prepare, and then when you're finished doing that, prepare a bit more, then you'll be right.
Go in there early. You know, if it's the first time you're interfacing with this group, first time you're really, you know, had a tutorial and you'll be shaking inside, but go in, switch on the equipment, familiarise your equipment, because when I first started and screens wouldn't come down and I would just be dying when I had a lecture of 120 students, and I thought, why didn't I come in here and check the equipment?
One day I fell over in the tutorial, you know, you don't get upset about it, you just have a joke and a laugh, and then when I had a fall, then we talked about older people and falling, you know.
So when you walk into her classroom, sometimes the worst things can ever happen, and I think if you're honest with your class and the students know that you are sort of prepared, you can always get away with it. It's only when you're not prepared, okay, then you're in trouble.